Here we go then.
Here we go, man. Well, dude, we're finally making it happen. Collaboration. Where are you
Yeah.
at right now?
I'm in London. What about you?
London?
Yeah,
Okay,
London,
I'm in Las
UK.
Vegas right now. Yeah. So, and I know you were doing some traveling too, yeah?
Yeah, that's part of my work. I take people to train their mind in different places that are aligned with their energy. And it's actually super important that you train in a place that is aligned with you. I think that's why many people fail because, say, they go to retreat or a seminar and it's not really the place where they're supported.
Got you. So do you pick your spots like based on the client you're working with, or do you
That's
just
right.
like
Yeah.
do it? Wow, that's awesome, man. So you like sit
Yeah. Because
down with them and do you ask them like where you feel called to, or can you like
Uh,
their
no, I
energy?
can read energy. I can read their energy, so I don't need to ask them. Also, because they would know. Most people don't know their energy well enough to actually give an answer.
Got you. So I know we have four topics we're going to jump into on this call: purpose, masculinity of the new era, which I'm really actually excited to talk about, becoming the elite version of yourself, and then mindfulness. But I kind of want to get your origin story because we really haven't talked too much. We kind of like sent messages back and forth. So
Yeah.
like, how did you get into being like a spiritual mentor, reading energy? What's your origin story, Jay?
Okay. So I started doing that uh, just over 20 years ago. And the reason why was because well, had those skills from birth, but this is because I did that in previous lifetimes. So I don't want it to sound fluffy because it's not. There is a small number of people that can remember their past lives. So I'm one of those people.
You're one of them.
And
I'm jealous.
it happens, well, I would say there are pluses and minuses to that.
Right.
But it's super good for spiritual work because with spiritual development, it's awesome because everything that you do actually stays with you forever. So anything else that you invest in, money, physical development, career, you name it, goes when you finish this incarnation, but spiritual development actually stays with you and you get to keep those skills as you move forward. And this is why it makes me laugh so much sometimes. When you meet someone and they're like, I can sense the future, I can heal with my hands, but I don't understand why. And I'm like, dude, because you had training in your previous lifetime. This is where it's from. So I often say to my students, like, you may not remember me going forward, but you will get to keep those skills that you're developing training with me. And so with spiritual development, especially as you get older as a soul, you get to remember more and more of your lifetimes that you've lived through, which helps you with integrity because you don't see yourself as this separate ego story. Oh, this little me in this lifetime, but you remember yourself living through different eras, different countries, different cultures, and then you become a sum total of those experiences, which puts you in a much stronger position, but also gives you many viewpoints and the ability to help your clients more because you've made so many mistakes, you've lived through so many experiences that you actually understand a lot more patterns. And yeah, so this is what happened. Because I remembered my past lives, I was never really a kid, like a child or a teenager, because you can't if you get
How old are
born
you
with
now, by
those
the way, Jay?
memories. Sorry.
How old are you right now?
Oh, I'm 41.
41? Man, dude, you look fucking like 21. That's
I
insane.
know, I know. This is
Um,
on purpose. I
got
did
you.
it on purpose because I like looking this way, and it's
Yeah.
part of my integrity, and it just suits me. So I kept it this way. We have an actual mechanism in our body and our mind that allows us to control our body to a high degree. And you might have heard it from yoga, but there are also other applications like self-healing or changing your look to what you feel is congruent with who you are.
Cool. So you started at like an early age, like as like a little kid, that you just remembered your
Uh, I
past
started
life.
when I was about 18, I'd say.
18? Okay. All right. Cool.
How
And
old are
what
you,
was that?
man?
I'm 33. Yeah, in this lifetime.
All right, the age
I
of
definitely know,
Jesus.
like, I definitely know that I've lived past lives, and I kind of get like glimpses of them. And like you said, like I feel like as I get older, they kind of unravel, and I think that's part of like the narrative, and it kind of like you said too, like it helps you on your journey and whatnot. I kind of wanted to, just because I'm a rebellious person, just like go to like a seer or find someone reliable and like just get them all out of the way and like get them all shown to me. But I mean, I think when I get called to that, like when that feels right to me, then I'll do that. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. I enjoy where I'm at in the work I'm doing now. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Let's dive into masculinity of a new era. I think that's a good string to kind of start with the and kind of like wrap the other four topics or three topics around it. But what is your take on masculinity as we head into a new era? Like where's masculinity going? And where should masculinity be focused on?
I love the question because it's so important and it's so relevant right now, like you wouldn't believe. And so many people get it wrong, which is painful to watch. So this is what's happening. You know how we have seasons during the year, like we have,
Yeah.
spring, summer, autumn, right? So something like that also takes place on a greater scale with the whole Earth in the universe. Because, as we're talking right now, we're actually traveling through space at an enormous speed, together with our planet, together with the solar system. And so, what most people don't realize, there are things like cosmic seasons as well. So, as
Cosmic
cosmic seasons.
cosmic seasons. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's just something that has always been there because as we travel through space, our solar system and our planet, we obviously orbit around the center of our galaxy. So just as seasons are created on Earth, because the Earth is orbiting around the sun, right? But our solar system is also orbiting around the center of the galaxy. So it also has seasons, except they're much, much longer. And this is why not everyone is aware of them, but they're super important. So there is something called the cosmic hour. And one cosmic hour lasts for about 2,000 years, 2,160 years. So that's 1 hour. And
Why is it called the cosmic hour?
yeah,
No,
so
why? Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
I was asking
Yeah,
why is it called the cosmic hour then if it's like 2,000 years?
from the standpoint of the universe, it's just 1 hour.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's an equivalent of 1 hour in our understanding. And so what happens is every time they change, they have a different polarity. Okay, so you know about polarity, the masculine and the feminine, the magnetic.
What has a
And
different polarity though? Like the stars or what?
each of those cosmic hours has its own energy.
Okay, gotcha.
And apart from its own unique energy, it also has a polarity. So they keep switching plus, minus, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And so for the last 2,000 years, we lived in a very feminine, magnetic era. And right now, we've entered a new era, which is referred to as the era of Aquarius. And I know there is a lot of misunderstanding going on about it, but essentially, we've just entered a new cosmic hour. And this new hour has a very different energy from the previous one. So the previous one was passive, receptive, because it's the feminine polarity. Now, the masculine polarity is about creating, not accepting, but creating, as you know. And so, as this polarity has switched, we've now entered a whole new era for the next 2,000 years of positive, creative, masculine energy.
Nice.
And yeah, so it's awesome. But the problem is that self-development as it stands right now, it originates from parts of the world that prefer the feminine way of developing. And also it based on the previous era. So things that worked back then and they were awesome back then are not just not going to work right now, but they're actually hurting the people who practice them, especially the men. So women can get away with that, but men not really. And so in this new
Can you give some
masculine,
examples of that
sorry.
too? Can you give some examples of that too? About how
Yeah,
it like
sure. I was going to actually go into it. Absolutely. So here's the thing. If you look into self-development right now, the way it's being practiced, the main idea, or one of the main ideas, is, oh, you should accept, surrender, surrender to acceptance, all of this stuff. And thing is, it's the feminine polarity, because the masculine polarity is to create your new reality in accordance with your will. And it's a very, very fundamental difference between the masculine and the feminine. So we see them as men and women, obviously, because on the physical level, they represent themselves this way. But we need to understand that the masculine and the feminine are the actual forces in the universe. So it's the electric force and the magnetic force. And so the electric, the masculine force, is about making things happen, going first and blazing your own trail, not accepting or surrendering. So if you start adopting the mindset of the opposite polarity, aka deal with what is, accept what is, do not rebel, keep down, that is actually hurting your masculine core. And when that happens, you then become a much weaker version of yourself. And if that happens, you then become open to manipulation from other people because you're not in your truth, you're not in your power, and you're just not standing on a stable ground. So this is why I'm saying that adopting this way of self-development is really hurtful for men.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. What were some of the, well, I guess you talked about like surrender, right? Like,
Yeah.
is there some exercises or things that you see common in the self-development field that are being promoted that you're just like, dude, that's fucking up your masculine core? Like, don't do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ayahuasca is one.
What's that?
Ayahuasca.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Okay.
Why is that fucking up masculinity?
That can Jude, that can fuck you up like nothing else can, pretty much. So with ayahuasca and shamanism, what happens is it came from somewhere else. Like, for example, it came from Amazonia, right? And in those cultures, it was designed for their type of mind. And it was given people after a really profound spiritual training. So people would not just go and distribute it to random guys saying, hey, just drink this, it's going to be fine. But right now, it became a huge industry where people are invited to believe that if they drink that, somehow all their problems are going to disappear. They're going to become automatically enlightened for a modest price of maybe $1,000 or $3,000, whatever they charge for the retreats. And of course, people being lazy, their ego being lazy, actually not their true self, but the ego being lazy, thinks, oh, that's a sweet deal because if I can just pay $1,000 and get enlightened, that's like awesome. 3 days, I don't need to do any work.
Yeah. It's the magic pill that we're always looking for as humans.
Exactly, right. And the thing is, if someone does it without prior preparation, I've seen so many people being so absolutely destroyed by that mentally. I met people who took years to recover. Some of my students came to me because they looked for help, and I did help them out. One of the most important things that you need to have if you even consider trying ayahuasca, you have to know how your mind works because it breaks your mind. So you need to know how to fix it. So unless it's like, imagine with a car, like back in the days when people used to fix their own cars, like you wouldn't go to a place where there are no service centers unless you knew how to fix it yourself, because he would understand that if you can't, then if something happens, you're screwed. And so with many people, and this is what happens. For example, one of my students told me this story. So he took ayahuasca several times, and one of those times, things went really wrong, like really, really wrong and really dark. And he said, so one of the most terrifying moments in my whole life was when I was just drowning in that terror and some demons attacking me. And I crawled on all fours to the shaman, asking him to help. And he saw an expression of pure fear in his eyes because he had no idea what to do.
Wow.
And my student said, and at that point, I realized that I'm on my own with this. So like I'm stuck. And then he found me, so I helped him out. But shamanism specifically is a feminine way of discovering the world and discovering yourself. So again, it's not something I would suggest for the guys to do, simply because it can damage you so much that it's literally not worth it.